We will all encounter a rude or mean or toxic person at work. But the question is, can you handle it like a corporate saddie or like a corporate baddie? Hi, I'm Corporate Saddie. I don't usually know what to say to mean or toxic coworkers. I freeze up and I feel overwhelmed when I encounter conflict, and I usually agree to whatever they're saying just to keep the peace. What's up? I'm Corporate Baddie. I am comfortable responding to conflict directly. I plan and feel prepared for difficult conversations, and I know how to phrase my point of view receptively to others during a conflict. If you want to be a corporate baddie, I got you covered with tips from Harvard Business Review, plus my own insider tips from working almost a decade as a corporate girly, so stay tuned. So there are two scenarios generally when we encounter a toxic, rude, or mean person at work. It could be a specific work disagreement or conflict, or it can just be an ongoing mean or rude person. Sometimes these overlap, so let's cover both situations. The best way to respond to conflict is to address it directly. And I know some girlies are not comfortable with direct confrontation, so keep watching for some tips. So when addressing the situation directly, to be effective, this option requires explaining your side of the disagreement, respectfully listening to the other side, and mutually arriving at a resolution. If this is done well, this can really strengthen your working relationship, but if it's not done well, it can damage your connection. The second option is to address the issue indirectly. So maybe you want to talk about it without directly referring to a situation or getting a third party involved to interfere discreetly. Sometimes you want to use this option if you want to keep your integrity or dignity intact, or you may want to do that for the other person. Another consideration is if there is hierarchy at play and you cannot confront someone directly. For example, maybe it's your boss. The third option is doing absolutely nothing. You choose not to engage and you move on. This is used when it's a relationship that is very low touch, you're never going to talk to them again, or very minimally, it's not worth the effort. And it's a really easy option when the risks of addressing an issue exceed the benefits. And the last but not least option is exiting the relationship or situation. So this is a last resort when your work conflict is really bad or that person is just not vibing with you. Next, let's talk about how to prepare for conflict. Let's be real, conflict is stressful AF, but having a plan is critical for reducing your stress and helps improve your confidence in the situation. Before you even start the conversation or the confrontation, think about what is the best way and time to approach this problem and how your counterpart might react. Preparing in advance will help you stay calm during the conversation and keep you focused on your goal. When planning, you want to consider these 4 items. Number 1 is relationship duration. Is this someone you need to work with often, or is this someone you're only going to work with once and you don't have to deal with them ever again? So for short-term interactions, you may want to decide it's really not worth your time to resolve this conflict. But for longer working relationships, you might want to invest, plan, and figure out positive ways to move forward from this disagreement. Number 2 is doing your research, okay? Observe how other coworkers interact with this specific person. Collect your data, ask them, what is the best way to work with this specific individual? What are their needs? What are their concerns? Number 3 is having a clear purpose. You're not going into the conflict just to fight, okay? What do you want to accomplish in this confrontation or in this disagreement? Maybe your goal is, I want us to finish the project on time. I want us to work respectfully with each other for the duration of the project. Whatever your goal is, keep your goal in mind during your conversation. And last but not least, choose a good time. You don't want to be bringing up conflict when the other person is rushing at the end of their day, or maybe it's like near Friday afternoon and their head is completely checked out from the situation. Choose a good time to have this conversation about the conflict when both of you can be present and minimally distracted. So overall, when you're preparing to have a difficult conversation, know what you want to say, have the facts, and choose the perfect time that will minimize your stress and improve how confident you feel going into the confrontation. And while you cannot mind read whatever your counterpart is going to reply to you, having a plan helps you feel confident and prepared to resolve your conflict. So we got the plan, we got the research, and we have a goal. But Rosie, what if I freeze up when I'm in that confrontation? Don't worry, girl, I have more tips to help you stay confident in the actual confrontation. The first tip is calm yourself. A really good way is vent to your colleague, vent to a trusted friend before you confront that person. Or you can go on a run, you can punch a punching bag at the gym, shake it out, do whatever it is that you need to calm yourself, because you don't want to go into that confrontation really stirred up and angry. You want to be calm. Second tip is to reassure yourself. Remember, you are two humans having a conversation. You are not going to die. You're not going to step out dead, okay? You will survive. It is just a conversation. So reassure yourself of that. Another tip is to focus on what you can learn or gain from the discussion. Maybe you want to better understand each other. Maybe you want to figure out a creative new way how to resolve this issue or move forward on the project. Really focus on what you can learn or gain instead of why you hate this specific rude, mean, or toxic person. And a really important tip is practicing what you'll say. Rehearse what you want to say so you feel more prepared. And maybe it's that trusted coworker or venting buddy. Also, consider how you can modify the tone of your conversation a little bit to highlight collaboration rather than conflict. So maybe you want to be warm, inviting, encouraging instead of very harsh, blaming, or judgmental. So really consider how you can express yourself with care and consideration as you approach your conversation. And I have more tips in a couple seconds, so keep watching. And lastly, you can avoid a lot of judgment and blame if you take a moment to really consider, what is that other person's perspective? What might they be feeling? Why might they be feeling this way? Like, why are they rude? Why are they mean? Why are they toxic? What is contributing to this? Try and understand from their perspective. And sometimes maybe it doesn't make sense, but at least give that a try and you might have a new insight. Okay, ladies, now we have a plan. We know how to stay confident, but it's a matter of what do I say now? And a pro tip from a Harvard Business School professor named Francesca Gino is, I hear you. So she studied the language that helps us come off as more receptive in a conflict, and she calls that I hear you. So the H stands for hedging your claims. So rather than saying, I'm 100% sure I'm right, you can come in a little more softly with less certainty, saying, one perspective on the issue is this, or one way of thinking about this problem is that. So you can really soften your claims a little bit, and you can say, I think, or sometimes we often encounter. Now, the E is for emphasizing common agreement. So maybe you disagree for so many things, but try and find that little silver lining of what you actually do agree on, what you see eye to eye on. A stands for acknowledging others' perspectives. You may not agree at all with what they're saying, but it's important that you acknowledge that there is a different view on the situation. Finally, R stands for reframing in positive terms. Often when we're in conflict, there's a lot of negativity. We say, I hate this, I hate that, you're completely wrong. But challenge yourself to reframe it in a positive light. Can you say something like, one thing I do appreciate is this, or one thing we can agree on is that, or one thing I like about this is X. Another pro tip is to use and instead of but. Listen to these two examples. I understand why you want to approach this differently, but let's take a look at my idea for a second. Versus this, I understand why you want to approach this differently, and let's see if we can take my perspective into consideration. Some other key words that can help you phrase your argument positively are, it would be great if we could try. Here's what I'm thinking. My perspective is X based on this observation. I came to this conclusion because X. I'd love to hear your reaction to what I just said. Do you see any flaws in my reasoning? And do you see the situation differently? So try and ask them for their point of view and try and reframe things positively. If you're not dealing with a disagreement or conflict, but you're dealing with rude, mean, or toxic comments, here are two strategies. The first one is pausing and asking. So if someone is rude to you, immediately pause. Don't be offensive or rude back, just take a breath. And this pause might alert them to listen to what they just said and reflect on it a little bit, because oftentimes people just blurt things out. They're not thinking, it's their automatic reaction. So give them some space. Next, use a question. Sometimes rude or toxic or mean people don't realize that they're being rude. So you can ask them gently to call their attention to it. So you could say something like, hey, did you mean that? Or I'm not sure I understand what you're implying. Are you saying X? And do you know how that comes across? Sometimes we often forget how our actions impact others, or in the heat of the moment, we are so mad or angry at the other person that we don't want to confront them about it. But taking a pause and asking them to reframe it can often alleviate the situation. Another tip is to set boundaries. When you set boundaries, you let people know how you're going to let them treat you. You're not controlling how they act, but you're informing them what are the consequences of their rude behavior. For example, you might have a boss who is not respecting your time after work and calling you, texting you. You can tell your boss something like this to set boundaries. Now, setting boundaries might feel really uncomfortable at first because you're not used to it, but practice makes perfect. And also adjust this script based on your cultural work context. So pause to read. Okay, now it's for real talk advice. Even if you directly confront disagreements, if you are assertive and kind, if you practice setting boundaries, sometimes those toxic situations do not resolve and they are still there. So the first tip is to get receipts. If you are being harassed, if you are the recipient of unprofessional behavior, keep a log of all of these incidents so you can report them to the appropriate party. Second, get support. So personally, while working in consulting, I've had all sorts of crazy clients, okay? I've had clients who are really patriarchal, condescending, didn't listen to what I said at all, or yelled at team members. So in these situations, as a consultant, sometimes I don't have the right power or hierarchy dynamics to directly confront them. What I do is I pull in a team leader from my team to either support me by sitting in the calls to either reiterate our perspective on a situation, or they have the power or hierarchical balance to have one-on-ones with these clients to reset professional working expectations. So find supporters, talk to them, and see how they can help you, whether it's just confirming your perspective or speaking on your behalf. And lastly, even though it is 2023, you would not believe how shocking that how many companies do not take action when individuals file complaints like harassment or unprofessional behavior. So if you are a company that does not handle these situations, please leave and prioritize your mental health, because staying in those situations is not good for your career or mental health. So get out of there. Overall, being assertive, feeling confident, and communicating directly are all skills that take time. So be compassionate with yourself, take baby steps, and practice all these tips that I shared today. So if you want to learn more about work-life balance, setting boundaries, and common work-life balance traps, watch this video next where I talk about all of that and then some. Bye!